recording. There we go. So should be live. I'm gonna post the announcements. So
Hello.
Discord. Hello. Let's see. Another announcement. Here. There we go. And Blue Sky one. There we go. Okay, we should be live.
Can you hear us?
Oh, we could check the Froox software. Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Are we coming good? Is audio okay? Can you hear us well?
Make sure you adjust the bunny ears on your computer to get the best reception on your video game.
What? Corgiderp. We got Fuzzy. Hello, Fuzzy. Wow.
Coming to you live over UH.
Ah!
Over UH.
Oh, right, this is the thing.
Oh,
Thank you for the cheer, Jagger Focus. Yes, this is the new version. Wow. Hello. Thank you for the 100 bits. And the fanfare. Yes, we'll get a little more visible thing, one more visible thing now. So we got people piling in. Hello. Hello everyone. I think it might be good to start. We got a few people piled in.
Yeah.
So we got oh my god, we got Schnappi already. An emergency temporal shift. Hello. So hello everyone. I'm Froox, and I'm here with Syra. And today, we're doing another episode of the Resonance, where you can pretty much ask, anything about the Resonite. Pretty much whatever you want to ask, whether it's technical take, whether it's more philosophical about the platform, anything theme, our plans for the future, our past, what we're currently working on. Anything you want to ask, feel free. The only thing, make sure to put a question mark at the, at the end of the question, so that way it kind of pops on our thing here. Hello, Jay Wyden, hello, Butler. It pops on our thing, and the way we don't miss it. Also, some of the questions we might just give very general answer and kind of redirect it to another office hours, for example the moderation one that happens before this one, so we have to wait for the next week one, or some of the other our team office hours or probably primes. But feel free to ask, we'll always, the worst case, we'll redirect you. Actually, well, I'll keep this with me. So with that, I think we should be good to get started. We might have some questions from Discord. There's a few. So there's literally two. So we'll go through the Discord questions first, the ones that we can ask in advance, and then we'll get then we go to the the ones in the I'm sorry, kind of slow today. Then we'll go to the ones in the Twitch chat, while they kind of pile up. So with that, I think we should be good to get started. So we got a question from Discord, from Sox the Fennec. Are there any plans or ideas for better management of headless servers? Like admins being able to save and restart work through their client. It can be annoying to have to log into server it's hosted on and issue those commands, especially when in VR, and I'd rather not leave autosave on. Yeah, there's a few things that could be done to kind of improve that. One of them is I would say actually more in general, one of the things I would want to do with the headless server is sort of introduce more a kind of plugin system where you can add modules and things to add behaviors, so that'll kind of give you more control over how it runs, can expand upon it, and then provide some default ones. For example, being able to send the commands, that I feel it could be relatively simple. It would make it, I would even make GitHub request for that one, because we could make it where you specify a list of these are the people managing server, and if you send a message to the user that's actually hosting the headless, you know, it would kind of like respond to those, because that would be relatively simple to add. So that's probably the simplest one. But also like adding, you know, some like APIs, so you can kind of build systems around it, like, you know, web management interfaces and so on. There have been like ones built in the past, like that kind of they kind of parse, you know, the output from like command, you know, from the command line, which works, but it's, you know, not as robust. But we have sort of like, you know, like an API that like you could use to essentially manage the state, and you can, you know, build your own modules, you know, build your own systems, can expand around it, and I think that would be like also like really powerful. Particularly, like, you know, web management interfaces are like, you know, very common and such. There's another bit that will kind of come into it, like which is gonna be with the molecule, which is gonna be a sort of like versioning update system, and we'd like to introduce some kind of like, you know, orchestration for that, where you could actually have it like, you know, auto update the server, so it's like, you know, where it kind of checks, okay, like new public version has been released, so it's gonna, you know, wait until all users exit like, you know, the worlds. And then it's gonna, you know, update it, spin up a new version, like automatically download a new one, and sort of make that easier. But I would say, like, you know, if you made like the GitHub request for like, you know, just being able to send the same commands through Resonite contacts, I feel that one that's very easy to like add. Just thinking about it, so like I think like we might prioritize that for now, but there's also like, you know, some other stuff in the future. Yay, thank you.
Yay.
Thank you for the raid. Yeah, so I think it kind of answers that. A lot of the stuff, like in general, like we kind of want to do is like, you know, it's sort of empowering you to kind of like, you know, build your own systems, build your own stuff, and providing sort of like the tooling or the APIs like to do stuff, because people like to, you know, customize things and fit it with their workflow and fit it with other systems. So I think that like approach is one of the most powerful ones.
So clearly what I need to do is just implement the render connector on the headless, and then, you know, you'll have the interface and turn it into a graphical client.
That's what a graphical client is. I mean, essentially, graphical client is it's pretty much headless with a graphical output. It's the same code. No software rendering. Yeah. So next question is from Venport, also from Discord. Forwarding from prime office hours because you told me to add Resonance, but I wanted to put it here so I could maybe have time to prepare necessary stuff to answer this. Oh, I don't. Could you explain why call relay and async relay seem to be weird functional? For instance, I recently found there are workaround issues, so it'd be cool to know how it's working inside to make that not happen. Also how to enable loops, as they could probably use. So what you're probably talking about is like, you know, the call relays that can be used to sort of break loops. The way like ProtoFlux works is like when you have like a sequence of actions, you know, say you have like a node, you have a bunch of nodes, and, you know, these are kind of like flowing to each other. So what will ProtoFlux do in the background? It essentially, if it sees like a sequence and it's only, you know, goes into a single one, because you can have like, you know, stuff like this where it goes here and then it can branch. What ProtoFlux will do in the background, it'll try to build like a linear execution list, where essentially it builds a list like where you have like, you know, you have like this node, and this node. So it builds a list where it's like, do this node, do this node, do this node, and it doesn't need to like worry about any kind of branching, because it knows ahead of time branching doesn't happen, and it knows these will always execute in sequence. If you have something like this, it like, you know, so you have a node here, there's actually gonna be two lists. There's gonna be like a list that goes here, and then it branches, and like, you know, and then you're gonna have like one list that goes here, another list that goes here, and, you know, it can do whatever sequence it wants. What happens with the relays is like, in most cases, the nodes, they use something called continuations, which means like the node, it essentially sort of relinquishes control, and the flow, the control flow, goes to the next node. And it's sort of known, like, you know, sort of at the compilation time. Like, it's not quite the same kind of compilation. Ooh, thank you for the Lexo for the subscription.
Thank you.
It's not quite the same kind of compilation, but essentially, like, you know, pre-building a list where it knows this is always sequence, it's unchanging, it sort of pre-builds that, and then it makes it more efficient because it doesn't need to be figuring out at runtime what's gonna happen next. It has that list. It also means it can kind of skip, you know, certain checks. So, for example, if you did something like this, you know, you wrap it around, you know, this is technically illegal, and it knows that because, like, imagine what would happen if you try to build a linear list of execution, you know, with this kind of thing. You would start here, so you would add like one node, go here, then do this node, then go here, do this node, do this node, do this node, do this node, and you essentially end up with an infinite list because this is infinite. Like it would like never end. But it can determine that, like, you know, during the build process, and essentially be like, this is invalid program. However, calls, like, the important part about it is, like, you know, that continuations essentially build uninterrupted, like, kind of, you know, continuation lists. If you use a call is different. So what call does, it essentially puts like a break. So, like, say this is a call instead of continuation. So what do you get? You get like one list, and then you get another list. And this is the whole list, you know, for the execution flow. And let's say we can add another node here. And then this essentially like kind of breaks it. And this is going to be its own separate list here. So, like, when it runs, it executes this, and then actually it kind of returns the control back, where it can be, okay, what's gonna happen next? Do we need to interrupt the flow? Is maybe, like, has this been running for too long? You know, do we need to figure out something else? Is it maybe like a conditional? Are we kind of conditionally doing like a loop thing? It has, you know, it essentially breaks the flow, so the system can have the opportunity to figure that out, and figures out, no, we want to continue executing, so we go to this list. You know, and then like executes this one. And if you do a loop with this, grab too much. Actually, let me rethrow it. If you have, you know, like a loop, save like a sequence, you know, goes from
some
here.
Of the relays if you want to use them.
Don't just throw it.
Okay.
Because I want to kind of like showcase like things. So, and say this is a call. Actually, no, let's move it here. Let's say this is a call. This becomes a valid program because you have like one list. Actually, no, let me put this here. Let's say the call is here. So we have like one list. So there's this node, and then like once it continues here, this is its own separate list, and it's gonna be like a call. And it kind of goes like, you know, back into this one, which essentially gives the system an opportunity to be like, okay, I execute this, now it's in control, and figures out, okay, are we okay keep continuing? Yes, we are okay to keep continuing. Okay, continues here, and then because this actually has like separate start, this goes back here, it's like another, goes into this list, goes back into this list, executes, gets to the end of this list, and again, are we okay to keep going? Yes, we are. So it kind of jumps back. And like, the execution is kind of potentially infinite at the runtime, but it doesn't need to build like an infinite, like, you know, execution list. And what it does is, like, if these nodes are conditional, this can be like, you know, an if statement or something, and it could essentially be like looping as long as some condition is true, and then stop. Because at each point for the call, like, you know, it has opportunity to stop. And kind of, you know, takes like the runtime to kind of figure out, which is a little bit more expensive, which is like, you know, why most nodes don't do that. But you can kind of use it to, you know, break up the flow. And you can still make like an infinite loop, but now because, like, you know, there's a break in it, if it ends up running for too long, the system can, like, once it gets to the end of this list and is deciding, okay, I'm gonna do the call and execute another, you know, sequence of actions, it can be, was I requested to stop? So if Resonite, for example, detects it's running for too long, it tells it please stop at the next, you know, opportunity, and this is the opportunity at which it stops, and it's gonna be okay, I'm stopping now, and it just gonna breaks the whole execution because it ran for too long. That way, if there is an infinite loop, it can be, you know, broken. So I hope that kind of like explains what's happening with it.
Well, I was actually curious which one of these relays that one was you were talking about.
There's a call relay, so I don't know which ones you have. I think that's a call one. There's an async call. Async call is kind of pretty much the same, but it's just for async context. And then there's the continuation relay. The continuation relay, that's pretty much like it's the most common one you wanna use. But also like, you know, it like leads to those like kind of internal like lists, which are more efficient, which is why you want to use them in most cases. Only when you kind of need to break it up, like you need to break up the flow, then you need to use the call one. Okay. So that's that should answer that one. And we also have a bunch of questions there.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, there's quite a bit, so yeah. I'm just kind of working out because, like, you know, we can answer the Discord ones and we get a bunch of ones piled up. So we got a cheer, thank you for the cheer. Glenn's asking for Schnoppit. Do you have a Schnoppit? Do you have a, like, something makes it explode?
Do I have a Schnoppit today? Ooh, do I have a Schnoppit today? I can't readily think of a Schnoppit off the top of my head today.
I can think of like one. It's like when it's like actually two. There's like actually I don't know if I should say this one. Well, there's one where sometimes people like end up asking, like, you know, we're like deciding, you know, what to prioritize. And actually, well, actually I did a video on this one already. I'm just gonna reiterate it. It's like when we kind of decide to prioritize, sometimes people are like, just do both. And one of those things is like, you know, like a few people don't realize is our time is limited. If, say you have like, you know, 8 hours a day. And if feature A takes 8 hours and feature B takes 8 hours, you have to decide which one to do. You won't be able to do both. Because doing both would mean, like, you know, working for 16 hours a day, not getting much sleep, not getting food, like, you know, not getting that stuff. And that's one of the things, like it's a bit of a theme sometimes, like, where people, like, they don't understand that, you know, we are limited in, you know, time. We are limited, like, in how much mental strain we can kind of handle and so on. And they don't really have, like, much of a account, you know, for that, and that's like one of the things that kind of like bugs me sometimes. So that would be my Schnoppit for today.
I think that's a pretty good Schnoppit still.
This is a good Schnoppit. This is a quick one, and there's like a video on it, like I did like a visual thing. Next question's from Baplar, and also like we're putting them out because people ask about it. Baplar's asking, the event for Resonance on Discord server is still at all time before daylight savings. Who should I contact to have it fixed? Probably just gonna leave it because it's gonna fix itself like in a bit. The problem is that like Europe changes at a bit different time like than US does, so now it's gonna offset because I made it like, you know, in the European time zone, but we're following the US one for these, so it's kind of offset and it's kind of broken, but like I have to fix it now and then fix it back, and it's gonna be fixed in a bit, and daylight savings are just pain, so we'll probably just leave it until it fixes itself.
Thank the people who implement time on your system clock, by the way.
No, it's not even that. It's the problem is, like, different countries change a different week. Which means it's gonna be off for, like, the time there is technically correct for the time we're following the European, like, daylight savings, but it's not, you know, we're following the US one.
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't know.
I was saying like thank the people who implement like the system time on your computer, because the world still works even with all of this horribleness.
It's just people get confused every year. But I might just like see. I don't actually know like how to like make it like be the US one, but like we'll see. It's painful every year, like even with the team, because like we have like meetings, and some of the meetings were put on like, you know, on the calendar by people who are from Europe, and some were put on people who are from the US, and then people from US expect them a regular time, but now it's shifted in the calendar. But because we have most people from the US, we kind of keep it at the US time, which means it's now offset for the European people, and it's like it's I DST needs to be abolished.
Yippee.
Emergence. So the next one is Emergence and Temporal Shift is asking, talk about a plugging system. Is that in Resonite? We do have a rudimentary kind of plugging system, so you can kind of load plugins. It's not as well fleshed as I would like it to be, but yeah, we do have like one. I don't remember the context of this question, so there's actually one thing I want to mention. If you're asking for like a, you know, thing that's kind of been discussed or mentioned or something, please include the context in your question, because we'll probably forget by the time we get to it.
Yeah, I will say that our plugin system is a little bit better than it used to be, because you can actually have, you know, like Userspace core plugins and still join people now.
So next question is from Shen WNL. Do you guys have any ideas or plans to actively expand your user base? Yes, there's like a few things. So like for expanding the user base, it's essentially a combination of like, you know, technical side, like what we actually offer with Resonite, and marketing side. On the technical side, we've run a survey like a while back where we tried to like figure out what's the biggest blocker preventing people from playing Resonite, and people pretty much overwhelmingly said is the performance. And it's something we've been kind of focusing on as the primary task ever since. It's something that's also now heading towards the final phase to get a big performance update. And we think, you know, that will help make Resonite like easier to use for a lot of users. Because once you kind of like, you know, run way smoother, it's like easier to run on a computer, like that's gonna present fewer barriers for people. It's gonna feel better to play because things are just smoother, and in general, like, you know, it should make the platform like more fun, more accessible. After that, you know, we'll also be doing other things, like we wanna like, you know, improve the IK, improve like UI, like do a bunch of like other things to make Resonite friendlier, and remove like, you know, a lot of the common frustrations that people might have when they come to the platform and when they don't, you know, stay for one reason or another. There's also like stuff that the content team's working on, or our team. They've been working on sort of like a tutorial, sort of like a starter kind of like experience, like that walks you through some of the, you know, common stuff you might want to do to make the onboarding easier, make it easier for people, you know, to get comfortable on the platform. So we think that's also going to help. And the other part of this is, you know, the marketing side. Like we haven't been really we've kind of made it a bit quieter on the marketing side, but earlier last year we actually contacted, you know, some YouTubers and some other people who, you know, talk about VR, they like the videos and so on, and we did try like, you know, collaborating in a few videos. And we actually saw that some of them, like, you know, they would bring significant amount of users. They would like bring more people to the platform, and it would bring us more support, like, you know, on Patreon. Like we actually got like, you know, surprisingly big kind of return on investment on that one, to kind of, you know, help things going. And we're sort of planning to do something similar, like, you know, later this year, especially once, you know, the performance update kind of goes through, and we hope that it will like, you know, help grow the user base some more. So there's like a number of things. We do hope like this kind of will help. Some of them, like we even have data, you know, this actually does help if we spend, you know, this amount of money, you know, on you know, on like a video, we get, you know, this many users from it, and we get this many like supporters from it. And if you like, you know, go on our past like recap streams, Bob, who's our finance officer, he actually, you know, he had some graphs, and you could literally see like on the graphs, like when like the user growth would be kind of flat-ish, and then like when we did like, you know, the marketing stream, like it would go up, and then we stopped doing that and it would go back down. So like it was very noticeable effect. So if you wanna check that out, it should be on the wiki. There should be like a recap stream like on our YouTube channel. check it out if you're like interested in more details. The next one is a question from tracker, come on. The next one from Arouser Luke lol. Will you ever do age verification? I think it would be safe for the platform. I think we'll probably do it at some point. We've been kind of had like some internal talks about it. Like we're not like decided on a specific kind of approach yet, or specific kind of like provider that we go with, but we did discuss it. There might be actually like even a GitHub issue about it, like with some kind of discussion about it. So it's something we'd like to do at some point. No, but we don't have concrete plans yet. We'll also probably, like if we do get closer to it, we'll open up like a discussion, with the community as well. Be like, like what you're comfortable with, like, what kind of like approaches you take, what services like would be comfortable with, and to kind of get more into it. So it'll probably happen at some point. Like it's both kind of like something that can be useful for users and their safety. Is also something that makes us safer because with certain like countries and so on, like you do have to like make sure like the platform kind of complies with like whatever rules, and sometimes doing the age verification that can be part of it. Next one we got the rate. Next one is questions from Grandy K. Is asking, I have just been messing around with making subscription impulse system. Could this become an official node component for arbitrary slot to subscribe to receive data through dynamic impulse or similar from another slot? I mean, I don't know how is that different from doing dynamic impulses, because like when you have dynamic impulses, like we have the impulse receiver, and it is essentially with particular tag, and it's kind of subscribing to events with the tag, and you have like something that triggers those. So that to me like fits a subscription system, but does Sumu mean something else? You probably have to kind of explain it a bit more, like because I don't know what kind of difference this would have from that system. I don't know, Sarah, if you have idea what it could mean, but
subscription impulse. Do you mean like subscribing events or something like that?
It's like dynamic impulses have to specify targets, so like multiple targets isn't a thing.
Well, I mean, the thing is when you specify a slot hierarchy for a dynamic impulse, every single dynamic impulse receiver inside of that hierarchy will be impulsed, and you can even get out how many of them were impulsed when the node completes.
Yeah. And if you like don't want to like be like just for particular hierarchy, you can literally trigger it on the root slot, and it's gonna go to everything. So we probably would need like more specific like explanation what you want to do, because right now it just kind of sounds like dynamic impulses. Next one is a question within the chat. Okay, so next question is from Real9S. Is asking, as far as I understand, inventory is stored in Cloudflare R2. Would it be possible to self-host S3 compatible storage to have more private inventories? So it's a little bit more complicated than unfortunately. We use Cloudflare R2 to store the raw asset data and asset variants, but there's actually also Azure services involved with inventory. We use the Cosmos database to kind of store like a lot of kind of like metadata and stuff kind of around it. And the inventory storage, like it's essentially more complicated than just file storage. Like it's not really just files. There's a lot of kind of metadata and organization, sort of like asset pinning. Plus there's additional services, like for example anything you have stored in the cloud. We have cloud services that generate asset variants, for example, that generate metadata, that speed up kind of loading and so on. So S3 compatible storage is insufficient to like it doesn't have like the functionality that is needed for those kind of like inventories. Like it's more than just pure like data storage. So I would say like you can't really do that kind of self-hosting. Next one is from Shen WNL. is asking, what is your overall vision for Resonite, and what are main things that are holding it back from getting there? Sort of like vision for Resonite, it's sort of like is meant to be like this sort of everything software, like, or everything sort of framework where whatever you wanna do, you could do. It's almost like, operating system for multi-user persistent experiences, where you have like, I like to use the analogy of the real world. Is, like if you, like when you're in the real world, you have like basic, kind of set of interactions you can pretty much do everywhere. You can like, navigate, you can move around, you can move between the rooms, you can go outside, you can travel. Wherever you are, you can grab things, you can touch things, you can talk with other people, and those are things like you don't even think about, but that are sort of, fundamental to our human experience. And the thing is, with virtual reality, like a lot of these things, they are not for granted. Like, not every experience you have in VR is gonna be multiplayer, not every experience is gonna be persistent, not every experience, you'll be able to like take one thing from one and bring it to the other, and just do different things. So Resonite is kind of designed in a way to sort of serve as like a baseline layer where you have guaranteed like synchronization. Everything by default is in sync. Resonite takes care of that. You don't need to even code it. It does it at fundamental level of how the engine works. That gives you, the multiplayer aspect. Like every experience, you can have multiple users. It's collaborative, and a user can like modify. You have full control over the environment. The worlds you're in, like anything can be potentially edited. Like, even yourself, like the way you are embedded in the world, you have full control over that. And you have persistence. You can like, save pretty much anything. You can save it to your inventory, save it to the cloud, load it back. It persists. And it's sort of like meant to be like, this kind of baseline level where no matter what you do on the platform, you always have that. You have the social layer. And you can, just stay there. You can just, socialize, talk with people. But you can also collaborate together. You can build things together. You can learn together. You can, you can play games. You can go, visit like, some kind of narrative experience. You can use it, for like education, like we have like somebody teaching, presenting. You can use it as a virtual studio, like, where you kind of collaborate to produce something, like, that you then publish like elsewhere. And the goal is like for it to be like, a place where you have pretty much like as much control over your reality as possible, and where there's no like really sort of artificial kind of like limitations to things. And sort of provides, like with like the base things, like where you don't have to worry about like a lot of the common stuff you have to deal with when you make applications in Unity or Unreal or Godot. Like you have those interactions kind of generalized, and you can focus on, what makes your thing special. If you're good at, say for example building tools, you can build tools and let other people use it, and the way you share the tools, you can literally just take the tool and give it to someone. Which, it in the real world, if you make something, you can just give it to someone, it's that easy. But in virtual worlds, you don't have that for granted. Like, say like if you use some kind of tool for like use like a VR application for like, drawing, like you and you have like brushes and can customize them. It's not a guarantee that individual application will be like, if you make your own brush, like customize it, they'll be able to just take it and give it to someone. Like a lot of applications will have to implement that, but with Resonite, that actually doesn't need to be implemented, like, for the brush system or whatever new subsystem that uses. That's sort of fundamental to the platform itself. And the goal is like, for people to be able to like, the more you build, the more tools and features and things you add to this virtual universe, the richer it becomes, because everything is kind of part of the same universe. Everything can potentially interact with each other. Everything can like coexist. And our goal is sort of like, build a place that goes, where the social VR aspect of it, that's the baseline. Like for example, recently we actually like added support for Gaussian splats. And it's like another thing is like now we can use it as part of anything, and with that feature being in here, it's automatically collaborative. You can spawn a Gaussian splat, you can look at it with multiple users, you can do basic editing with multiple users. And the more functionality we add to it, you'll be able to do all of that, with multiple users kind of in the session, like, can be like anywhere in the world. And every time we add like more functionality, or every time you add more functionality, by building stuff on here, it just becomes accessible to everyone. So it's really sort of like, meant to be this kind of software where you can do anything. Like pretty much like anything that like is computationally possible, like we want you able to do it. In terms of us like, holding a product from getting there, it's a relatively long process. A lot of the things you can already do, but there's like, some limitations. For example, on the level of scripting you want to do. We do have ProtoFlux, which is, our visual scripting system, and it's fully collaborative. You can work on things together with other people, but certain types of algorithms might be inefficient to implement this way, or just kind of it's not the best kind of tool for that. So one of the things that's going to address that is being able to use WebAssembly. So you can actually compile like libraries and modules with traditional code, bring them in and use them as part of the environment. So that will, for example, help a lot. The other part is, some of the performance things. We are currently stuck, using very old version of Mono that's within Unity. That's holding up a lot of performance, but it's something that's going to be resolved like within the next few months. Because I'm kind of like working on moving away from that and being able to use the more modern .NET 9 framework, and it's kind of gonna open up like a lot more options. It's gonna make things run much smoother, and it's also gonna make it just generally kind of easier and more accessible to use. You can also what's the word? I would say like in general, like a lot of it's like it's like two parts. It's like where I feel at some point we're gonna like reach sort of the critical mass where anything we can do with platform, you'll be able to do with the platform. And for that, like we kind of do have to introduce more of the scripting systems, do more generalization. We do need some more systems to be able to share them easily, like for example workshops, so it's easier to share the tools with the community, and that everybody, like if you make a cool tool, make it so it's like very easy for other people to find it, make it so people are kind of interconnected. Because I feel like at some point, once we reach that kind of critical mass, like that whole thing is gonna explode, because everything you do is gonna empower other people to do more on the platform, and everything they do is gonna empower you, and you get this kind of sort of like thing like where everybody kind of resonates with each other, and people, hence kind of the name Resonite too, where your creativity, your skills complement everyone else on the platform and make it make everyone essentially kind of grow together and make more possibilities on the platform. For example, with WebAssembly, one of the things you'll be able to do is like make procedural meshes and textures. So you can just build a library of those. Once we add systems for for example processing audio, you'll be able to build a virtual studio where you can compose music in game, compose like sound effects in game. You'll literally be able to build virtual studio. If you want to collaborate with somebody, just send them an invite to the world. Want to publish the studio for other people to work in, with whatever setup you made, publish the world. But also want to add some effects that we haven't implemented ourselves on the dev team, implement them in whatever language you want, compile to WebAssembly, bring that in, and you can use it as part of the platform. So once we kind of have some of these systems to give as much power to everyone on the platform as possible, which is a little bit tough because we also have to do it in a way that ensures long-term compatibility, meaning whatever you build, we want it to keep we essentially want it to never break as long as you use the proper systems, as long as you don't kind of use certain hacks. We want to design things in a way that are persistent pretty much forever. And and just because that way you kind of make like the universe, it just grows and grows. So in some regards, like some of the things that are holding that is like time instead of like manpower, but we are persistent. We can kind of like do this for a really long time, and we're gonna keep going like until we kind of reach that kind of critical mass, and even after then. This is a very long-term kind of project for us because we want to make that vision a reality, where you essentially have a universe where the only barrier is gonna be like your imagination. Because to me, like, no matter what you do, whether it's whether you do science, whether you do art, storytelling, whether you do like tools, I feel creativity and imagination that's at the core of everything. Because even for scientists, I have like a favorite like story. It's like how Albert Einstein, he came with a I forget if it was it special or general theory of relativity. I think it was the special one. The way he kind of came up with it, like he was literally like imagining like what would happen if he was chasing a photon, like like a wavelength, and like he even attributed that like because he had like a vivid imagination that made him come up with some of the like really fundamental science theories. And a lot of people they tend to think science is very kind of cold and unimaginative, but like if you look into a lot of scientists, you'll find it's anything but. Another favorite one is like Richard Feynman. Like he talked about it a lot, and in his books like he makes you like really get these like vivid images in your head to understand what is going on. There's even a video like of him talking about like the power of like imagine, I forget how it's exactly titled, but like he was for example explaining how rubber bands work, where you take like a rubber band and like how the molecules like they have these kinks in them, and like how you stretch them and they do this, and that's what makes them want to pull back together. And it just really gives you this vivid imaginary in your head, and that makes it so like imagination is really core. And then you have stuff like art, like I don't think I need to like explain there, but like imagination is super important for us, super important for like storytelling. But even things like engineering, you have to imagine technical concepts, think about them. When you're building kind of stuff, like it plays a role in everything. And oftentimes it's very easy to like imagine things in your head, like how they should be, how they should work, and so on. But what becomes more difficult is taking that imagination and putting it in a world into something you can kind of share with others. And that's kind of what we want Resonite to be, is make it into a place where it's as easy to do as possible, where you can take something, some imagination in your head, whether it's related to any of these topics, and make it into a reality that like you can inhabit with other users wherever they are in the world. So that's kind of, I feel I'm rambling at this point, but
yeah,
that is kind of like the big sort of vision behind this place. So thank you for the question, and I hope you enjoyed this ramble.
Yeah, you're like halfway across the world, but we're like sitting right next to each other.
Yes, I can do anything. I can like yay, thank you. I don't know what it was because it's not scrolled, but thank you. You see, like, and I can literally do this. And I can.
Well, Froox, you need to listen to me. If you don't implement this feature right now,
Okay.
Resonite.
Okay, there we go.
Listen,
Sorry.
Listen. If you don't implement this right now, the whole platform's gonna stop it.
It's gonna snop it. Oh no. This is like a in joke. This has been going for a while. But yeah, like they can just do this, or I can like literally like earlier I was like, Sarah, do you need like a pillow? And I selected a thing because like there was a pillow over there. It was like, oh, we can just do this and just put it here, and like you have control over what essentially your reality is. So
yeah,
that's kind of big part of when to deselect. That's kind of big part of like what Resonite is making it so you control your reality and make it easy to like take things from here and put it out there and share it with others. Should move to the other question, I think.
Yeah.
So that was a subscription from Lexivo, thank you again. So next thing Granuke is asking, with WebSocket's nodes components, could it become possible to send binary data like images, video, which is just a series of images over WebSocket out of Resonite? So theoretically, yes, it is possible. There's a few ways this can be approached, because right now with the WebSocket support on Resonite, you can only do text-based messages, you cannot really do binary. The binary ones, they technically require collections, because binary messages essentially it's an array of bytes. But once that's in, you'll be able to say send arbitrary binary messages, do whatever with that. The other aspect of that is though, how do you actually get like, that binary message? How do you encode stuff and how do you decode it? So you could do it, with ProtoFlux, but doing, stuff like video encoding or audio encoding, that might not be the best approach because you don't want to implement like, codecs in that. So we might need to provide, certain nodes, like, to do encoding for you. So like you essentially give it like, some audio stream or something and it generates the messages for you, and then you just, pass it to the node and send it out. So I feel for a lot of the common things, like we'll probably need to do something like that. Video encoding particularly can be a little bit tricky because it can get heavy, like depending on the video size and so on. But theoretically, yes, it is possible. Next question, Grand UK is asking, would it be possible to have 2 element tuples added before the collection update? A lot of time 2 different types is good enough for my usage, where I want to pass reference and other form of data, which I could serialize into string or pass as is. Maybe it depends like what you mean, if it's like a generic one. I think it might be possible, like we could maybe do it, because like it is an element, and we do have like stuff like the spherical harmonics too, which like is essentially a new sort of basic data type, but you can use primitives. So for primitives, I think we could do it. So if you make a GitHub request, like we could like look into that, where you can kind of pack those together. I think that might be feasible. We'll probably put some limits, on how deep you can go, because we cannot allow you to make like types that become too big on the stack, because that'll crash everything, because you should be making types that are way too big. But for smaller ones, like with some limitations, I think that could work.
I think there is an issue on that already.
Is there? Let's give it a upload. There's also like asterisk, because like once I kind of like look into it more, like there might be some other issues. So I don't want to like give a definitive yes on that. I probably also probably do like more kind of tuples, like few things. Next question is from Jack the Fox Otter. I recall a while ago you mentioned there are still some low-hanging fruits left in regards to ProtoFlux optimizations. What are some things you've planned to make ProtoFlux learn faster? Some of them are like, just kind of doing a bunch of kind of optimizations on the generated code, like eliminating, unnecessary ones, doing... there's a fair amount of reflection that's kind of used currently, and we could like, sort of pre-compile a bunch of the stuff where that's gonna reduce the impact of that. But that also might not become as relevant, because reflection with, like, once we do the switch to .NET 9, reflection is way faster with that. So it just might become like, where it's not really that big of an issue. There seems to be an issue particularly with the mono used in Unity, where the more you use reflection, the slower it gets. Like, and my hunch is like it's kind of building some internal structures like for caching, but it's like doing, I don't know, maybe linear searches on those or something, because it just becomes slower and slower. And .NET 9 has like way efficient implementation, so we'll probably evaluate. There's some bigger things as well, like like doing sort of like more JIT compilation, like where like it actually generates machine code and so on. But we'll evaluate it, like, once the .NET 9 comes through, we'll see how things like kind of run with it, what's the next kind of bottleneck on things, and decide based on that. Next question is from Ledge the Showman, is asking to both of you, did you make or commission an avatar? So this is like a base, the Exoium. I got my texture. Actually, we both got our textures from Duff. He's a texture artist, like on here. So the textures, they're commission. Well, mine actually was a gift. And the avatar, that's a base. And also, like, some accessories, like for example this hair, like, I bought it on Gumroad. And some, like, with some other, like, accessories and things. So it's kind of mix of things.
Yeah, the like my clothes I bought off of like Gumroad, and like the collar I actually found in here, and then I ended up exporting and tidying it up and giving it my own material. Yeah.
Yeah, usually avatars, they have a kind of mix of things. Like you have like accessories, like, because like for example this hair doesn't come with the default X, so like I got it at Gumroad, and actually did some edits to it too, so I can like texture it like the way I want. Next question is from Emergency Temporal Shift. Is there a reason we don't wireless wires? There would be like Wi-Fi connection without a mess. It's called dynamic impulses, that's wireless wires.
Yeah.
Next one is from Rako the Gremlin. Hey Froox, I haven't had the opportunity to ask this before, but I have a dream of making an interactive ProtoFlux learning tool. I wanted to let users add the lessons to a dictionary as they go, that they get to look through for information from the studying I've done. I can't think of a method to do this. Would you happen to have any kind of suggestions? And it kind of sounds like you kind of need to store data, like essentially like in a collection, which we don't technically support collections right now. So we kind of have to use workarounds, but there's like, oftentimes people end up like using either like the slot hierarchy, where essentially like, you make and remove slots for like, each element you want stored, and you can, even put like stuff like dynamic variables on it, to store a bunch of data. Sometimes people store it in the name or in the tag. Or the other approach that people do is they serialize it into the string, like for example use like some delimiter, and then parse it back out. So there's approaches to kind of do it. And so you might also kind of know some because you do a lot of ProtoFlux.
Yeah. Add lessons to a dictionary as they go. Interesting.
Once we do have the collections, like, it'll be easier to do. So, but there are ways.
You can also kind of use dynamic variables as like a string value dictionary.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's true. I've actually seen some people do that too. Because like essentially what it is, like in the background, it is like it's a dictionary kind of based thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good approach. Emergency temporal shift. Why 2K38 problem? Am I right? Actually, we shouldn't be affected by that one because the datetime structures that are used in C# are 64-bit, so they don't suffer from that. The specifically Unix timestamps that will have the issue. So Grant UK is asking, I have spoken with some people when Resonite came up, and they mentioned about the dislike of Inspector to make things, and either wanting outside SDK or alternate way to interact in VR with components and slots, other just lists of fields Inspector. What do you think could do to tackle this? So there's a few things, but like one of them is like I would probably ask like, what is the issue with an Inspector? Because like if you have an outside SDK, so for example Unity SDK, it's pretty much gonna be the same thing, because the inspectors in here, they're inspired by tools like Unity or Unreal or Blender and other tools where you have an inspector and it shows you a list of components and you can do things on those. So, having the SDK that doesn't really get off that kind of concept. For some things we do, more visual tools, like for example, we have the material tool. So if I if I grab, this thing, this makes it so you don't need to like use Inspector for other things. You can like work more physically for certain approaches. We could do more tools, along this line. So if I don't know, I'm just gonna grab the texture of the sun and, I don't know, what can I hit? There we go, now the walls are sun. And I just, point and click and I can, turn Siren into the sun. You said you've seen sun today. Now you've become one.
Sun right now.
Yeah, you bright as a sun. So, I can do it to myself. And this is, something that avoids inspector, is more physical, you can literally, the material is something you grab. I could do, maybe not this one, let me see, what could be. No, this is way too coarse material. I don't know, orange. I'll turn Siren into on. Well, that's too similar to the one I just used, hold on. I'll turn it into LSD, there we go. But yeah, like, the point is, this kind of tool gives you more physical kind of workflow. So that is like, one approach, but there's only so many things you can do that with. You can't do it like, for everything. But it is an approach. It allows you to do some building. There's other tools that let you do more kind of physical sort of building. Let's see, like, you can make like, basic primitives, stuff like that, block things out. You can combine the tools, so you can like, steal this carpet texture, put it on this. Now I have, carpet cube. So that is a more physical workflow, and we would like to do more of that, give you more kind of physical tools, so you can avoid inspectors in other cases. We do want to have an SDK, sort of like SDK framework, so you can use external tools. So like if you're kind of familiar with Unity or other things and you want to bring existing content in, it's very easy to do with that. That's something that's going to appear at some point, but like I said earlier, that's not really going to get rid of the inspector thing, because literally in Unity you also have inspector. So that's, not going to help, at least not in that regard. It might help, like, in terms of familiarity if people like used to those tools. The other part is also, we do want to improve like the desktop functionality. So for example, if you have an inspector, you can, pin it to, side of your window, and that way you have like, a view, and you have the inspector always pinned. You can, partition your workspace, kind of, the way you do in Unity, the way you do in Blender. We think that'll also help, but like, again, you'll still be working with inspectors for that. So it kind of depends like why exactly they dislike inspector. There's multiple things, so hopefully, this kind of helps.
Yeah, I think a lot of people misplace the like their problem with like, oh, I don't want to do everything in game with, well, it just needs, better UX, UI, whatever.
Yeah. I mean, the goal is like, especially if you're in desktop mode, is for the UI UX to be very similar, to stuff you do in Unity, Blender, where, you can literally partition the workspace, pin the windows, have it similar kind of workflow. And I think that's like, that's like where we want to put most of our time in, because for us, being able to do stuff in real time with other people and collaboratively, that's, our core thing. So that's like, where we want to put most of our work in, because if you do work in Unity, it's no longer collaborative, it kind of loses that kind of aspect. And that said, like, I still think it's important to have that SDK, because it makes it, especially if you're familiar with the workflow, it kind of eases people in. It makes it easier to bring existing content in, so there's value in it, but it's not our core thing. Our core thing is building stuff in game, and that's like, what we will put most priority on. Next question is from Lexevo. Can the team guarantee that features that are supported now will be supported some way 50 years in the future? No.
Will we be? We don't even know if we'll be around 50 years in the future, man.
I mean, hopefully, but yeah, we don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, we would like it to.
I will say you can actually go back to like some of the really, really, really old worlds, where like, even like, like even like the first concepts of like a programming language in here still work.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Like, we do put like a lot of work in Resonite. It's put like, you know, into making things maintainable long term and having sort of like, you know, upgrade mechanisms. So like if we do change some of the behavior, there's a mechanism, there's like, you know, a mechanism how to like convert it into a new system where it still works. And everything's kind of, you know, designed around it. So like assuming we do exist in 50 years, and I hope like we will, but it is a big task. We should be able to, but it's also like, you know, it's very long time, so like we can't really give you any solid guarantees on that. One thing that I think will help though is, like I mentioned kind of earlier, a big part is, you know, giving people as much control as possible, and there's like certain things we'll do, you know, for example, exposing the upgrade mechanisms, opening, you know, some of the code, or eventually even like, you know, all the code, so you can, if something is broken, anybody can fix it. You know, anybody can like do an upgrade mechanism for the thing and help bring things back in case they do break. So there's like things we can do to like ensure like, you know, that long term, even for example after we're gone, that people can like, you know, help, you know, keep running things. And a big part of that is, you know, designing the systems in a way where it's easy to do, where, you know, you have that tooling for handling, you know, sort of upgrades and converting things. But yeah, 50 years, like we can't give you any guarantees for that kind of like, you know, long that kind of long time frame. Guarantee case asking, with integrated verification, would community provided edge verification still be allowed? Probably. I would actually say this is a good question to bring to the moderation office hours, because oh, and I just randomly pulled out this.
That's right.
I don't know. I hope I they're probably talking about the sun.
Oh, they're referencing the Will Smith, like, that's hot. That's hot.
No, but bring this to the moderation office hours. I feel it's kind of better to answer, because like we'll probably, you know, have to figure out the policies on that. So even they might not be able to give you like a definitive answer right now. But yeah, I would ask there. I would probably like my current answer, with, you know, caveat, like this is not like definitive, is like I feel it probably would, but it probably wouldn't be like held to the same standard. So like if you wanted to do your own verification for your own things, you'd probably still be able to do that, but it wouldn't really integrate with any of the platform-based stuff. Because generally we kind of make it like if you host your own sessions, you host your own events, you can kind of, you know, run them in any way you want, and as long as it kind of complies with our guidelines. And I don't think it would not comply with the guidelines, but I would recommend bringing one to the moderation office hours. So next question is from PowderPub. Do we have any new interesting features planned for the audio system update? We actually got to ask this one like a few times. We did like an answer, like there's actually a video, actually there might be 2 videos on our YouTube channel. If you go to the Resonance clips playlist, you can find like more details. In short though, the main goal for, you know, the audio system is feature parity, because we like, it's sort of like a blocker to, you know, doing the big performance update. We don't want to delay that as, you know, too much. However, there's like, you know, few smaller things that can be done along the way. They're a relatively small amount of effort, so we cannot, you know, sprinkle those in. One of those is, for example, being able to have multiple listeners. So, for example, you know, you can be hearing audio normally, and then like for the camera can actually have spatialized audio from the viewpoint of the camera without interfering with what you hear. The other thing is, you know, have a lot more controls. One of the things we'll probably also do, we actually talked with Sarah about it like a little bit back, is allowing, you know, reverb zones to like affect the binaural audio, because it makes it sound like really cool. Especially with like, you know, the zeta reverb, because that one's also like a stereo. So there's gonna be like little things like that. We might do some extra effects, like allowing like audio absorption, you know, maybe like more kind of sounds, maybe ambisonic support, but main goal is really like feature parity. We don't want to delay the performance update too much, because there's other things we could do, like bigger ones, like for example doing actual like real-time audio reflections from the environment and occlusion and things, but it will take longer time to implement. So we'll probably do it after we're done with the performance stuff, like some time after that, because we don't want it to be delayed. We also got clarification. So Grand UK, I'll put it here. Grand UK saying clarification on the subscription question. I'm essentially wanting to have something similar to how Twitch nodes work, where they receive events from a Twitch interface component but don't have to be next to it or even pegged under it to receive. This would essentially be allowing users to make events, to send data, and event subscribers receiver that no matter where they are in the world, without relying on dynamic impulse on the root node, which would be heavy in certain worlds. It just sounds like dynamic impulses to me still. Like, it sounds like you want like dynamic impulses, but being it called different, like...
I think that like I think what they mean is like they want a way to be able to send a bunch of events to a bunch of things in the world without having to have it traverse like the hierarchy or whatever every time you call it. Which, you know, maybe there could be like caching added to dynamic impulses at some point.
Yeah, it's like we'll probably just like optimize like some of the like use cases for dynamic impulses, but it's pretty much like dynamic impulses. Like, yeah.
Yeah, you'll still need to iterate over every one of those receivers to, you know, fire them, but it can be made faster.
Yeah. It's like we generally like, you know, like, because this kind of happens, sometimes people like ask, like, you know, they want like slightly different version of feature that already exists, but they want it to be separate feature. But like we might be like it's just easier to make, like, you know, use what we have and adapt it and maybe improve it in some ways, rather than just making a whole other feature that pretty much does the same thing plus a little bit extra. Next question's from Emergency Temporal Shift. It's asking, wait, you can edit Gaussian splats? You can do basic editing, so you can crop them with a bounding box or a sphere. I actually have a tool for it. I haven't released it yet. It's mostly implemented, where you can do it visually. So like if you import a Gaussian splat, you can, you know, and you want to like, you know, cut like, you know, some of it out. You just take a tool, you draw like a box or a sphere, you press a button and it cuts everything out, and you can also export it back out. It's probably gonna come out like Monday, and I'll also be doing a video on it. So it's basic editing, but you know, it's editing nonetheless. And kind of like one of the reasons I kind of wanted is because I feel it's much easier to do in VR, because, you know, you have a splat and there's like, you know, a bunch of stuff. It's much easier to just be like, okay, I wanna just erase stuff like here. You put it in the box, you can see it like, you know, nice in 3D, and then you cut it out, rather than like, you know, fiddling with like a desktop tool where you have to like align it and like, you know, do different views and select the right splats and so on. Eventually I would like to add a tool where you can like do more fine-grained editing as well. It wouldn't be that difficult to do either, but I don't want to spend too much time on it right now, and like kind of move on to some other things. Where like, you know, say like you have like, you know, a bunch of floating Gaussian splats and have like your main thing here, and make it so like, you know, like you just want to erase these, so it'll be just like, you know, and they're gone. And then I can export it back, but that's gonna be a little bit later. I don't wanna delay other things for that feature. I thought it'd be also like really cool. Next question's from Grand UK. How could scripting with WebAssembly look? Would it be a component and Flux nodes to trigger functions in the WebAssembly blob? So this is actually another thing. We already have a video on it. So like if you go on YouTube, on our like YouTube channel, go to Resonance clips, there's a video specifically on WebAssembly. We also have a GitHub issue where like a little bit is kind of explained like in detail. But in short, it's actually going to be multiple things. Like you could have, whenever you import WebAssembly, it could define components, it could define ProtoFlux nodes, it could define specifically procedural meshes, textures, other types of assets. So there's going to be a way to have it represented in lots of different ways. And you could also have WebAssembly modules which only import, certain functionality, like, certain methods that can be then used by other WebAssembly modules. We'll probably use the WebAssembly component model for that, which allows sort of dynamic linking of WebAssembly modules. So it's pretty much all of the above. Next question is from Dynamus. I don't know if it has been thought about, but I see a lot of soft duplicates of assets, like different versions of shared base asset, textures on avatar. I know there's the replications on the backend, but it looks like they are just one-to-one copies, which comparing hashes is very easy to do from implementation point of view. Would it be possible to have slightly different assets as a div with some sort of patching system in order to save on total storage? So, possible, yes, but it gets a lot more complicated, because you would need to figure out what the differences are, but also you would need to be what's the base asset, because that might not always be clear with that kind of system. You can have just gonna make it, there we go, because that's not always clear, because you could, for example, say you upload a grayscale version of a texture first, and then you upload a color version of it. Is the grayscale the base, or is the color the base? Because it could kind of go either way. The other aspect is how does the diff system work? Because you cannot just diff the individual files, because they're usually typically compressed. You have to do some more kind of complex. Processing. And it kind of makes it complicated, because if you end up with system where you have a long chain of diffs, and say the asset at the end is the one that is most commonly used, then the system has to download the whole chain and then process it and apply things, and it becomes really complicated. And also some things will not be as friendly to diff. If you say, for example, you shift a hue, the binary asset, if you do diff between them, and it's compressed asset, they're gonna be pretty much completely different. Same thing, say, you do, some other, operations on it. It's just, you'd have to, implement, diffing, some kind of, efficient diffing thing specifically for textures that kind of works. On top of, implementing algorithm that determines if the textures are actually similar in the first place. So you have, you have to have, a kind of proximity hashing system. And we're still just talking about textures. What about audio? What about meshes? Each one has a very different way in how they work, and would need very different algorithms for each. And it's just if you wanted that kind of system, it just kind of explodes in complexity and the potential problems you can have with that, where it makes it where it's very unlikely to be worth the engineering effort, because having those different versions, if you compare the amount of implementation effort that would require and amount you save, it's very likely not gonna be worth it. The one-to-one duplication helps a lot, because it's very easy to do. You're just gonna hash it, saves a lot of storage. Usually you don't have that many different variants of the texture for that to be worth it. Because most of the cases, you're gonna be saving objects, and you're gonna have lots and lots and lots of duplicates of the same asset, but way fewer, sort of pseudo duplicates. So you won't save that much on storage, and the storage itself is relatively not that expensive. So it just it makes it so the implementation effort for the amount you save, they're just disproportionate. There's actually a thing it also, now I have just, this has just reminded me of a snippet that I should have mentioned. And it's a very general one.
Sorry, muted.
Say again?
Sorry, I was muted.
Oh.
I asked, what's that?
I feel a lot of times people ask the question, how should we do something, before they ask, should we do something? Because like there's so many times like where like people like, and this kind of happens everywhere, like where people just kind of jump into like, you know, this is how I could implement this is how I could implement that, and like the first question we should be asking is, should we be implementing this? And it's like, you know, the thing is like you can, yeah, like you can, there's lots of ways to do it. Should we do it? Is this something worth investing our time into? Because if it's not, then getting like deep into how we implement it, you know, is essentially a waste of time, and we shouldn't be like, this shouldn't be like where we spend our focus in. And oftentimes like feel that question is kind of skipped. I'm gonna check the Froox. Thank you for the 100 bits again. And it's also asking, well, actually not asking. Is this? No, that's not asking. I made a Twitch chat, Sire helped by adding cool particles, and now Froox is using it to read your messages. Resonite is collaboration at its core. Cheer 100. And yes, this is actually a really good example, you know, because part of Resonite is like, you know, giving you more control over, you know, the world you're in, and being able to build your own tools. And this is a really good example. We had, you know, Check the Fox author, who's like our community member, build a tool, you know, that has a lot of kind of cool functionality. It has, you know, the pin messages thing, that has, you know, you can pull them out like this, it has the particles now, and we're now using the tool, you know, because it makes things easier on us. It makes it like, and anyone can use this tool. So, you know, the effort, you know, he put into this, you know, is now kind of shared with everyone on the platform. Like everybody can benefit from it, everybody can build on it. If you're a streamer, you know, or you like do stuff like this, you know, now you're more empowered thanks to the efforts of another member like in the community. Like, you know, it kind of, each addition, each like tool, each like creation, it kind of like it enriches the shared universe, and this is a really good example of that. And it's kind of, you know, one of the big things that Resonite is about. Next question. Erasmus 0211 is asking, any plans to code all the questions asked and answers to them? This way you can avoid the same questions too often. We can already do some of the common topics that are, you know, on the YouTube channel. We kind of like, you know, cut it out like into its own video clip, and it's kind of published there. But even then, like, you know, you've seen earlier, people still ask it, and usually we'll kind of direct people, be like, you know, check the YouTube channel. It has kind of more in-depth kind of answers on that. We still kind of give like basic answers, so people, you know, get something like the general idea, and you can look into details for that one. For doing it for all the questions, it'd be more difficult because, like, if we were to do that manually, like, we have somebody have to, like, you know, transcribe everything, and that would require a lot of manpower, which we don't have. We could, like, you know, throw it at some, like, transcription system and kind of do that, but we also have to make sure that it works okay, you know, so it's, probably not gonna do it for the big ones, unless we find, like, a really good way to sort of automate it. Navy 3001 is, have you seen Upload VR recently? Yes, I've seen like the TARDIS like the article. I was actually surprised by that they made an article, but it's really cool. And Navy is like one of the wrong side. Navy and Ultra Wide Gamer, like they're people like who have been like working on the TARDIS, and they were like in the article. It was like super cool. Thank you for making that happen, or, you know, contributing to that happening and making the cool things. It's also like another thing that, like, you know, Resonite is about, is like, you know, people make like cool things, and like it's literally the everything universe, and like if you're like a fan of like Doctor Who, people can literally make a TARDIS, you know, and have it like go, and it's bigger on the inside, and they can travel in sessions, and that's gonna, you know, that's kind of like getting into the like sort of Ready Player Me kind of like, you know, realm of like all the cultural things. I was very excited to see that. Congrats on getting featured too. Next question. Oh, this might not be question to us. Might not be question to us. I'll see. Buplar Grants Evans question, maybe some kind of dynamic impulse relay component that points to target slot in a different hierarchy and made transfers impulse there maybe. I feel
it's just a dynamic impulse.
Yeah. I feel like the main thing was just gonna need like some kind of like, you know, caching or something so like it's invoked more efficiently.
Yeah.
And like, you know, they just use that. Next question's from JVidon4. I just remember that Resonite is considered beta in early access. It makes me wonder at what point do you guys consider Resonite to be released? What will make you feel confident about Resonite being full 1.0 release? So that's a good one. There's a few things I feel like, you know, we're kind of missing until then. One of them is what's being worked on, the performance update. So like we actually kind of, it runs way smoother on the hardware. The other one I would say is having pretty much all the core UIs reworked, because like a lot of the UIs, they're still kind of like old and crusty and not really like as friendly to use. And we kind of rework some of them, like for example settings UI, you know, that's kind of using the new system. We want to use that system, specifically, you know, data feeds, to rework the rest of the UIs, make it like a lot friendlier, make it look a lot nicer, so that definitely would be another part. I also think about the other kind of aspects, like those two are definitely the big ones. Maybe the IK, because that's like bugging a lot of people, and maybe sort of reworking some of the kind of like workflow, like for avatars. It gets a little bit fuzzier, but like I feel like at least those few things, which are big things, with one of them kind of being getting towards the finish line, those are definitely big ones. I definitely think if there's like any others that would kind of block it, because other things we can be like, you know, okay, that's like post 1.0. But yeah, definitely not, at least not until performance, and not until some of the UIs kind of reworked and make it kind of friendlier to like users. It's also like, you know, once it goes like into 1.0. Once it goes into 1.0 release, you know, that doesn't mean we stop working on it. It's almost like, you know, like kind of like Minecraft was, you know, when they did like 1.0 release, and they're just gonna keep going. That's kind of what we want to do with Resonite. Next question is Emergency Temporal Shift is asking, are the physics updates planned? Depends what you mean by physics updates, but we do want to integrate like rigid body physics. That is gonna happen at some point after the performance update, like that's the current priority. We're gonna sync up to like this Beppu physics, and at some point we'll decide, you know, we wanna integrate this, because it all offer a lot of kind of cool shenanigans.
Shenanigans.
Yee, shenanigans. Triborg, don't forget to enable things so the VOD public afterwards. This is still disabled from Tuesday BOTC game. I mean, we published that VOD on, we publish it on YouTube, so, but I might check it out, but it might be still off. Oh, that's the same thing twice. Ozzy's asking, how far behind are we on Beppu version 2 mainstream anyways? I mean, you can literally check yourself. So if you go to our GitHub, Yellow Document Studios, we have a fork of Beppu physics, and on GitHub it actually, Sarah, could you check that and bring that in?
Yeah, let me check how many, like, let's check how many commits we are behind.
And it kind of tells you, you know, in regards, I know it's a bunch, because they did a bunch of like updates. They actually switched it to .NET 5 and think even newer versions, which is at which point we kind of diverged. I've backported some of the fixes from the newer versions, but like only like crucial ones.
Let's see, Beppu physics.
So
we are 914 comments behind.
Yeah, that many. And you can bring that in. Can you bring the screenshot in?
Oh yeah.
See, power of collaboration. Ooh.
There we are. That's how many comments we are behind mainstream.
Oh my, that is. I didn't quite parse the number when you said it, but yeah, that's gonna be quite a bit.
I think they run on. Actually, let me check what version Beppu Master runs on right now.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious which one they switched to.
The demos. Yes, Raj. Yeah, they're on net 9.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, that's one of the reasons we also want to move over to it, because like it has a lot of improvements. Like the modern versions of .NET, they also have features that let them sort of like, you know, use a lot of like vector, like, you know, vectorization optimizations and other things like new APIs, and make it even faster. So like, you know, once we do switch to thank you Turbo for the subscription. Oh, it's actually a gift for Nukikon. But yeah, like it's gonna help. It's gonna help quite a bit, and we'll be able to, like, you know, also do stuff like, you know, at some point, like we might be like, let's do an optimization pass, like, you know, do new things.
It's not they're not actually dirty performance hacks. They're actually they're just low level. They're just very elegant.
Yeah, it's like very like low level kind of approach, which makes sense because, like, you know, it's a component integrated into other systems, and it's actually much better because we used like both the version 1 and version 2. And version 1, it had much more high level API, but that also kind of shaped how you have to integrate the video things, and if it didn't quite fit, it was kind of The way Beppo version 2 is designed is actually designed for much higher performance and to be something you can mold better into, like, you know, how your engine works, while keeping, like, you know, fast performance, where the library, like, you know, it doesn't need to be doing a lot of extra work that you don't need it to be doing, and only does, you know, what it's really about, which is a lot of physics stuff. So it's actually it's a really cool code. It's a little bit different from, like, you know, traditional C# code, but it has a good reason for it. Next questions from Baplar. If that's not too indiscreet, have you started work on audio? Are you still in the research phase? You can also check out. So if you go on our official Discord, in the devlog channel, I've actually posted notes on the design of it, and I can kind of bring them in too. And also, if you go on our GitHub and you check the GitHub issue for audio, actually, sorry, can you bring that up and screenshot the page?
GitHub issue for audio. Let's see.
Yeah. Copy image. Come on. I'm gonna copy this in the meanwhile. Whoop.
Okay. Here's a screenshot of the issue. Or did you want a link?
No, screenshot's good. I mean, if you post like if you want to post like in the chat is also good, but oh wait, no, can you screenshot like so it includes this bit?
Oh,
because
yeah,
it's
sure.
the right column. Yeah, I'll leave it here.
There we go.
So if you check here, you know, if you go to that GitHub issue, and this is all public, you can see it's in progress. And you can actually click on this, and you can see which stuff is in progress, which stuff is being worked on. Like, a lot of stuff, like the development we do, it's all, like, you know, public. We're pretty, like, you know, transparent about it. You just have to, like, you know, go and check it. It's also, I can actually take the screenshot of my last comment on this issue.
Yes.
I just want people, like, you know, be like, a lot of this stuff you can already, you know, find out on a kind of official things. So I want to show, like, where you can find it. So this is the latest thing I posted 4 days ago, where I pretty much said, like, yeah, this is now kind of started, you know, what's the current status on this. So in short, yes, I haven't actually started doing the implementation yet, but I've kind of started delving deeper into the design phase, and you can kind of see that, like, you know, it was posted in devlog. There's like a bunch of notes and, like, you know, how the stuff like is gonna work, so you can also check that out. You know, it says audio at the top, and there's a bunch of sketches and things and so on. One of the things, for example, dealing with is, you know, how stuff is gonna be parameterized. So here, for example, you know, you can essentially consider an audio system to be its own kind of loop, because it has to kind of keep going at a regular update regardless of your frame rate and keep generating audio data, otherwise your audio stutters. Which makes like one of the big parts is like how does the engine synchronize and push updates to it. So for example, if an audio source moves, if the listener moves, if volume changes, whatever changes, you want to push them into the system. So what it's actually gonna do is, I think I have it like somewhere lower. I don't know where exactly it was. There's conditions. I was kind of dealing with that. I was kind of dealing with a different problem. Oh, over here at the bottom. So the engine's running its own update thing, which might update like where positions of things are and so on. And then like the audio system, it has its own kind of state of the system, like where. But it's only like the audio stuff. And then at the beginning of each update, it's gonna look, okay, I received these updates, from the engine, so I'm gonna integrate them, and then I'm gonna, it's gonna do several things. It's gonna integrate all the changes, then it's gonna, recompute all the things for, querying the space. Then it's gonna collect. It's gonna be okay. Like there's a listener here. It's gonna figure out what are all the audio outputs within its vicinity that it should be processing. Once it has collected, it's gonna sort them by priority. So it's gonna be okay, like this one's highest priority, this one's lower, because it can only render so many of them. If you have like too many sounds, it needs to kind of cut it off at some certain point because it has limited amount of time to compute the audio update. And then it's gonna, it's actually gonna render them out and mix them together, and produce output that's then sent to your ears. And it essentially doesn't matter how fast the engine runs. If the engine stalls, like for example you freeze, you still hear everything because the audio system keeps going independently of the engine. It just keeps going on the loop, and in the integrate phase it essentially doesn't have anything, so it's just gonna keep whatever it has from the last one. It also makes it so like the engine is like not gonna be modifying stuff when the audio engine is in middle of computing some changes, so it's kind of handle things kind of this way. Let's see. There's also like some other stuff. For example, how is stuff gonna be parameterized? So like if it's like sampling audio, typically the attenuation is around like a sphere, but we want to allow other shapes, like this sort of teardrop shape, or maybe like a box shape. And essentially the idea is, we're gonna let the shape itself decide how it handles, stuff like the distance fall off and so on. It can use whatever equations it wants. All it gets as input is, this is where you are, this is where the listener is, this is their orientations, do your stuff. Figure out like, figure out what kind of attenuation you wanna do, however you wanna sample the audio. So yeah, it's in progress, and it's gonna speed up. Actually, next week might be a little bit rough because we have like a bunch of MMC stuff, so I'll try to get through as much as I can, but we're doing like the official judging, and then there's like rehearsals for the ceremony, so like I'll be kind of busy with that, so I don't know how much I'll get done, but it should get faster after that. Justice Sprinkles is asking, Froox, without telling us you thought about what you're doing this year for April Fools on a scale of evil snickering to diabolical laughter. I'm gonna say sad things. Next question we have from Dionymus. Once Resonite is .NET 9, are there any strategies are planned with keeping up with dependencies? I mean, that's not really a .NET 9 thing, like we already kind of do that, like where we will kind of look at the dependencies we have and update them when needed. We don't actually always update them because sometimes the newer versions actually have like really bad issues, and we'll be like, okay, we're gonna stay on this version until that's fixed. So, but it's not really a .NET 9 thing, it's a thing we already do.
Also, the Headless already runs on .NET 9, so like...
Yeah, and it uses the same code, same dependencies, so like
yeah,
that
we
makes...
we got this covered.
Just the sprinkles. Sire, how did how you get in your progress to be orange?
My in progress?
I mean, I turned it into orange earlier. I think this is all the question. What? Wait, actually, wait.
Did you get your in progress to be orange? What do you mean by in progress? What does that mean?
I don't know.
I'll give it a second in the chat. We can continue. I'll keep an eye out for it.
For those, I wonder, is that just working on the... you have to provide context. I'm sorry, I don't know what this is about.
Yeah,
or is it a good... I have no idea what this is in context of.
Oh, they were referring to my GitHub layout.
Oh, okay.
Oh, that's the new, like, we have like a new layout on like our GitHub issues, I think, because there's like a new layout for it or something that we were testing.
Yeah. Well, we have an internal one. I don't know.
Okay.
You'd have to provide context. What exactly you mean? Next question is... from Ozzy, how will the rework possibly help with audio stutters, in particular heavy stutters? I'm unsure how current system works, besides it also being on a separate thread. I don't think it will, because like the current system is also like it works in a similar manner, where it's like a high priority, thread or set of threads that just keeps pumping audio, and it's kind of asynchronous. So like if you do freeze, and this kind of happens, if you do freeze in Resonite, you will still keep hearing people, you'll keep hearing things. It doesn't block that. If it does end up stuttering, that's usually something that's higher level, like for example, garbage collector pauses things. So the rework itself will not help with that. If garbage collector pauses things, then everything's paused. But with that in particular, the actual switch to the 9 will help, because it has a way better garbage collector that doesn't need to freeze things in most cases. And if it does, it's for a much shorter amount of time. Next question's from Baplar. What tool are you using to take these notes? Wouldn't really have a use case for it, cause I don't have a drawing tablet. I'm curious. I use this Microsoft OneNote, and I do have like this kind of screen with like a stylus. I kind of use that. Next question's from Chip Kemono. What audio effects can we expect to have with audio rework? Also, can we expect physically based audio based on environment at some point, much like Steam audio? We literally answered this earlier on the stream. In short, like, you're not gonna get the environment one based for the MVP, because like we don't want to delay the performance update. The main goal is feature parity with the current system to unblock the performance update. There's gonna be few effects sprinkled like in, but not anything kind of big substantial that would kind of delay things.
Like a if there's time kind of thing, if it's easy.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's more like if it's small, because like the question is like, would we want to, for example, push performance update by 2 weeks just to get more audio effects, or do we just want it 2 weeks sooner and then, do it sometime after? So I think like, it's better to have the performance update sooner, even though like we'd really want to like integrate it now, but priorities.
There's too many cool things.
There's too many cool things. There's like way too many cool things to do and like only so much time. Okay. So that actually is all the questions like we got so far. We got about like 20 minutes left, so there's Oh,
it looks like so they were referring to the fact that most people see the in-progress stuff as like gray, but I see it as like orange. I think that's probably because I'm on the YDMS GitHub group or something.
Maybe. Like the performance optimizations, that should be public. So you should see that. I don't know if it's like it's just a color thing. I don't know, like, can I try like a different like browser so you're not logged in and take a screenshot of like what it shows?
Yeah, let me like sign out real quick. Go back to that page. Oh yeah, it is gray. That's interesting.
Is it just the color?
I think that's because. Yeah, let me sign in just so I can make sure. I think I know why that is. Let me just see. Come on. Groove. Okay. So I think, okay. So it's because I can change the status of these, that's why.
Oh, okay. But it should still show like the same thing. Like, does it show in progress? Like, can I actually bring a screenshot in, like what it shows?
I thought we had a screenshot of it.
No, but it shows when you're signed out.
Yeah, I'll sign out again real quick. So it shows this when I'm signed out.
Let's see. Okay. Okay, I see. So it's like just not showing the color of it. Interesting. I don't know they would do that. It's kind of weird. But it still shows in progress, so that's the main thing.
Yeah, it's mostly just because I can change the status of it, and so like
yeah,
it's because like
it's weird. Like why?
Probably.
It's still weird. Like they would do it. Like it's weird. But yeah, like it shows in progress. You know, like you can still check it out and see what the status is. Also, if you click on this thing, you know, you're actually gonna see like a Kanban sort of visual.
Yeah.
So yeah, there you go. The next question is, Kayubioru, can we grab Froox and press duplicate 100 times and let them loose on the Resonite code? I wish. It's a single... No, actually no, this is not single Froox, multiple instructions. Multiple Flux and multiple instructions. I don't know.
I mean that kind of thing is what what like some other coders on the team and stuff are for, so we can like tackle some of the tackle some of like the smaller stuff while Froox like implements the really big system.
Yeah, like for example for the audio system, like Cyro actually did like quite a bit of work that like saved me a lot of time with the reverb system, because that's something I'd have to normally deal with. But I could be like, you know, Cyro, can you look into this thing and implement this thing? Same like when I was working in the Gaussian splats, like Cyro actually ported the SPZ library for the SPZ format, made a C# port, and that way, like, you know, I can just like easily integrate it and like, you know, make it part of the other work. So that kind of speeds a lot of time too. So
yeah,
like we kind of want to, you know, get like more kind of engineers and people like who kind of help along with things, and we got like, you know, Cyro who's kind of helping with a lot of stuff. We got Prime he's handling a lot of kind of business side kind of things and helping like, you know, solve the kind of bugs and issues and just quality of life improvements, and it's saving like tons of time so I can kind of focus on the big engine parts. Next questions from Nukikun. Anybody wanted to ask people in the chat, did moderation office hours crash out or end early tonight? I've never got raid when I stream at the end of their time. They have raided a different person. There was like another streamer that ended up getting raid. I think it was like Mint something. I forget the exact name.
Yeah, you can't raid the same person all the time.
Yeah. They usually like look for different kind of people like streaming and try to like raid like variety of creators to like get them kind of like get them some more kind of viewers and get people like, you know, into lots of different channels. Especially so like if you're streaming anything Resonite, and especially around this time, we'll raid you, and like we'll usually look for like, you know, the kind of smaller kind of streamers. And especially if it's somebody like new, we'll try to raid them too, because that way the more Resonite streamers, you know, the better for the whole platform. Next question is from Troy Borg. I was wondering about the thing you made in OneNote that was handwritten, stuff was in different colors. Was that you having internal conversation with yourself, or was that group conversation? No, the notes there, that's all me. I usually use like, you know, different colors to sort of either be like this is help distinguish things from each other visually, or be like this is a different train of thought, or maybe like, you know, with something like a yellow color or orange color, I'll be like this is a potential issue thing, and then when I get an idea it's gonna be like, you know, green for example, be like okay, this is solution to a problem. So like kind of use colors, but it's mostly for myself. Like it's not like a super formal system. I just kind of use whatever makes sense to me at the time. But yeah, all those notes, that's just me, like I make on my own. Erasmus0211 is asking, what's Froox's favorite world type and what would you like to see more of? I mean, I always say like I like to see variety. Like I'm the type of person like if it's like the same thing like over and over again, it kind of gets boring for me. So kind of just like seeing like lots of different things. The main thing like I do like seeing is like polish on things. So like if your world is like polished, it has like a really good kind of core to it. That's oftentimes more important than having as many features as it can have, like where it's like not doesn't feel as cohesive, as things like together. So I also in general I would like to see like things where there's focus on making like polish, making it feel like really good. If you really press me for a specific type of word, I would say games that have like a really good game loop, where like we can get like with multiple people, we can kind of get into them easily, and they feel like really fun to play. It's something that people kind of keep coming back to. So having like those kinds of things is like having those kinds of things is, I feel like good. But I do like seeing variety. So like whatever you build, I'll be happy. And so, do you have a favorite type?
So typically I like I like seeing like a good gameplay and good design and stuff. Like that is stuff I definitely appreciate.
Yeah.
But something I've come to also appreciate are worlds that push the like worlds in here that push the limits of what we can do graphically. Because we don't have a lot of like the typical graphics features worlds or like games typically implement. Like we don't have custom shaders and all that. We don't have like light baking. So making really good use of the tools that we have available to make the world look fantastic, rather than trying to like shoehorn in stuff that's like not supported and whatever. I'm really impressed when people make really good use of things like light cookies and AO maps and all of that jazz to really push their maps like so that they look really, really good. Like I just light cookies are probably the number one thing I see people underutilize all the time, because they sound simple. It's just like a projected texture on a light, but they can make a scene go from looking like a 2004 Unity game to like, oh my god, this is like this came out like maybe 2 years ago, right?
Yeah. There's like one of those things like in general I feel, because like I feel a lot of people like nowadays like they're like so used like to the modern tools where they're kind of like missing that kind of like mindset where you use the strengths of the tools you have at your disposal. And it's actually I've seen like a bunch of like I've seen like a bunch of clips from a movie like Doctor Strange, and there's like there's like one quote like when he's trying to learn all the like sorcery kind of things in the movie, the Ancient One, she tells him that like I forget the exact quote, but she's like you have to kind of surrender to the flow, to the river, and then you make it your own. And if you try to fight it, like you're not gonna defeat a river. You're not gonna change it. So you surrender to its flow, and you kind of go with it, and you make it your power, and that's how you get like really powerful. And when you think about it, like if you go back like long enough with general software development, game development, it used to be that the old game consoles, like for example, one I had like when I was a kid, like I had like Sega Genesis, and it literally has 16-bit CPU that ran at 3.51 megahertz, and it had something like, I forget actually how much exactly, but something like 64 kilobytes of RAM, give or take. Like absolutely tiny amount. Like literally, a single texture on Avatar is like orders of magnitude bigger than the amount of total RAM those machines had. And the CPUs, they ran like orders of magnitude faster. Like I don't even like I would say at least million times faster, like, than those. It's just like so disproportionate people, but people, they still made great games with those. They found, how those systems work and how to make really cool effects and really cool things with very limited resources. And that was like, a really important skill back then, because you couldn't afford to sort of brute force things. The resources, the hardware would exist at a time was very limited. So it became so important to learn how to work with it, and how to lean into its strengths to make something great. And that's one of the things I kind of wish that more people would learn how to do, because you'll oftentimes you will run into limitations of tools, because there's things always have limitations. There's somewhere completely else nowadays than they used to be, but there's still gonna be some other limitations, and it can be great stuff if you learn how to work with those, and if you learn how to work with the strengths and really lean into them. So there's definitely a really good point Sarah made.
Yeah, there's and I won't take up too much more time because we're getting to the end here, but sometimes you have to design your thing around the limitations too.
Yes.
Like if you're making a level and there's a lot of light bleed, make thicker walls. Avoid the situations that don't have light bleed. Things like that.
Oh yeah, there's another thing with transparency is oftentimes in game design, in engines, if you're a level designer, you'll be told avoid stacking multiple transparencies, having multiple windows in a row or something, because it doesn't work well with the engine, and you kind of have to work with that. And also one of the things I really like to do is whenever there's a game I like when it has developer commentary, or where there's some resources where you talk about how they made it, and that's kind of verify a lot of the stuff, how they had to deal with those limitations and how they had to make these kind of rules to get around the problems, with tools, because sometimes it's not really possible to change those limitations, they're just there. So you kind of have to learn to work with them, and when you do, it becomes your strength.
Indeed.
We've got about 8 minutes left, so there's still time maybe for a few questions. There's one I think that's gonna be there's gonna be this one's I think is gonna be pretty quick. So Baplar's asking, have you already started visiting MMC worlds on your off time, or do you plan to most of your big world trip this week for judging purposes? At this point I've seen, well, as of yesterday, I've seen every single MMC entry. I've been through all of them. It took, I have it all recorded. It's about I think about 32 hours of total footage going through everything. So yeah, I've seen everything. I pretty much started when March rolled in, I was I'm gonna do a bit every day, spread it out, otherwise this would be insane doing it in that short of time. But I've seen everything. There's a lot of great stuff there. Some of the categories is gonna be really tough. We will have judging over the next week. That's the official one, so we're gonna get with the other judges, including the guest judges, and we're gonna be figuring out, we're gonna be going through some of the entries again. Especially each judge can also gonna be we should check this one out, we should check this one out. We kind of compare notes on those, and we're gonna be figuring out. And we're also gonna look at the audience voting as well, because that oftentimes also informs that kind of judging process, and oftentimes also breaks kind of ties, when we kind of decide on which ones. I'm not gonna say anything specific because I don't wanna give anything away, and right now actually I don't even know, I have some hunches what might be good contenders, but we still have to kind of talk with the other judges, figure that stuff out. So all that is becoming this next week, and me essentially going through all the entries, both I want to do it because I just want to see stuff that people made and sort of appreciate all the work everyone kind of put into their things. I even go, there's some entries that are disqualified for one reason or another, but I still go through them because I want to show a little thanks to it, and just kind of see what people have made. And then also kind of helps me, be like, this one should be contender, this one should be contender, and kind of bring that to the process. So, yeah, there's a lot of really cool entries, and I've seen literally all of them. And once the actual thing is like over, I'll publish all the videos, so you'll be able to see me go through everything. So we don't have any more questions. There's 6 minutes left, so now what? if you got any more questions, like, feel free to ask.
Also, I mean, like, you don't have to ask questions for the sake of questions. It is nice to just have a little bit of like airtime to kind of talk about whatever.
What do we talk about? But it's also the thing is like, we don't have like.
I mean, we never have enough time to talk about things for very long.
Yeah, it's like we have like 5 minutes left, maybe. We can't get like into any big topic. We should like maybe like at some point start doing like big topics, like or something like be like, this is the topic we're gonna discuss, and then we're gonna do questions.
Yeah, it would be nice to have like a sort of like a section where like we can just like discuss whatever.
Yes. But now it's too late.
These past few streams have been packed with questions.
Yeah, there's a lot of questions.
People want to know stuff. That's not a bad thing.
Oh, there we go. Rasmus0211 is asking, any future plans for concerts in game similar to New Year's evening? Yes, we don't have super specific plans, but I know there's like some groups who would like to do more, so there's definitely, I think there's ones that are gonna happen sooner or later. Nothing specific too. But yeah, maybe like big topic yapping. The only thing is like, I don't always have like a big topic necessarily. Like I sometimes like work better when prompted on something.
Yeah.
Because like I can get like, into a big topic like when there's like a question on it, but I'm not super good at like, just being. Well, I do have like some things that I wanted to like, so I should maybe like bring that list.
Yeah.
And just kind of explain. Maybe more schnoppets. Dalek is gonna. Nuki-kun is asking, any advice on optimizing worlds? I mean, that's a big one.
That's pretty damn big.
My general answer to that is use the least amounts of everything. Actually, no, I have two. One, use the least amounts of everything while still getting, the quality of things you want. So like, if you like, say downscale textures and it still kind of looks good enough, you've saved some performance there. The other part is profile. So like, test how fast things run. Sometimes you can like, you can do like a basic kind of profiling test. This is like where you just kind of duplicate something a lot of times and just kind of see how it runs. Because a lot of times with performance, people like, tend to like, what's the word? Make a lot of assumptions, on what like performs better and what doesn't. And sometimes they're right, but sometimes also they're wrong. And I kind of do it too, like, when I'm sometimes like, I have like a hunch, this is something that's taking, maybe a lot of time, a lot of performance, and then I measure it, and the performance is going completely different direction. Like, it's something completely else. So, doing measurements and verifying if, like, what you're doing is actually improving performance or not is, like, probably one of the most important things for optimizing. Like, don't assume, measure.
Yep.
Senuki-kun's asking, more procedural texture sound my stuff when? We don't answer when questions generally. Like, it's whenever, in the future, yeah. Whenever it happens. If you want more, like, thumbs up issues and such, there'll be more, maybe.
Right before we go, someone mentioned there's a profiling mod that can help find any issues. That will not give you accurate performance metrics because the very act of harmony patching something disables inlining on the code, which will affect the performance characteristics of it.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, that happens with any profiling too, because like, you always, whenever you use profiling tools, they can affect, how the thing actually runs, and oftentimes you'll have to like run different types of profilers, you know, to get like accurate idea of what's happening. Even like when I do profiling of like, you know, Froox engine, I will use a number of different tools, because some tools, they will actually affect certain things, and it kind of takes a bunch of effort to kind of, you know, narrow it down. So the profiling is good in general, like it gives you some information, but also don't take the information 100% on the face value. You know, it's something you work with, and something you need to like understand how, like, you know, how is the data you're getting, how can it be skewed by the very tool like you're kind of using. It actually happens in general, like if you do like, you know, any lab work and you have an instrument to measure something, usually the measurement will affect the thing some ways. And you have to, you know, be aware of that, you know, to kind of be able to work with it. Anyway, that's pretty much it, like, we're like in the last 10 seconds. So thank you very much, you know, for joining. Thank you, you know, for all the questions. I hope like you enjoyed like the stream, and like you enjoyed like, learning more stuff about Resonite. For everyone like, you know, supporting us, thank you so much. Like, you're kind of making this happen. For everyone who made like MMC worlds, you know, you should be proud of yourself. You made like really cool things, and I've enjoyed like, you know, going through it all. And I can't wait, you know, to kind of for the upcoming week, like when we kind of discuss all of that and so on. So thank you very much. If you're supporting us on Patreon, I would also like to repeat that like, we now allow subscription directly on our website. We're using Stripe service for that, and they take much less percentage, you know, on the payment. So even if you subscribe on the same tier, we actually get more money out of it, and that helps us a lot. So if you do support on Patreon, consider switching, because we'll essentially get more resources from that. So, but whether you support, whether you just make stuff, whether you just hang out, you know, whether you're just part of the community, thank you so much. Thank you, Sarah, for being here, you know, helping me answer your questions, and we'll see you with the next one. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.